Okay, it's 3 o'clock. I'm calling us to order, and we are going to follow our agenda and start with our very first item, which will be going into executive session. At item 2A, City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to conduct interviews and discuss and deliberate the appointment of a city attorney. If you happen to be watching online, we will start our regular council meeting at 6:30 p.m. and we expect to be in executive session until that time. Thank you. Okay, I'm calling us back from executive session. We recessed from executive session at 6:21, so I'm calling us back into session at 6:32. We're on item number 3, take any necessary or appropriate action on matters posted for consideration in the closed executive session. I am happy to entertain a motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the City of Bastrop choose the Allen Walker's law firm as a sole finalist and authorize the city manager to check all references and negotiate a contract and bring it to our next meeting on October 10th before our council meeting for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I'd like to recognize this firm for being very receptive to our needs for the city. And just make a note that this firm has 16 attorneys with a lot of experience in municipal law.
Councilmember Ennis?
Mayor, I just wanted to say that Mr. Borges has a degree in public administration and a law degree and could be a city manager himself, but he is passionate about municipal law. And that passion came through in his discussions with us, and that is we are going to be honored to have him as our city attorney.
Councilmember Nelson?
I kind of want to add to what Councilmember Ennis says. I'm impressed with the fact that the law firm practices exclusively municipal law, and second, that the principal with the firm is going to serve as our city attorney, our lead. And I'm really looking forward to working with him.
And all amen to that.
Any other comments? Okay, Madam Secretary, I have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Mayor, point of clarification on the second. Nelson. Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously, and we're encouraged the city manager, as stated in the motion, she will be checking references with the intention of bringing a negotiated contract back to council to consider on October 10th. And I just want to add my words to what you heard from council. We were very pleased with the 4 firms that we interviewed today, but Mr. Bajorquez and his firm and his qualifications, he rose to the top, and we are pleased to be able to select him. That being said, we are now convening into our regular meeting, which means I have a little bit of housekeeping that I need to do, and that is, as authorized by Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, this meeting may be convened into closed executive session for the purposes of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney on any item on the agenda at any time during the meeting. The City of Bastrop reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. This brings us to item number 4, and I have a strong feeling that the weather may have impacted the students that were trying to make it here today, but very generously, the Bastrop Advertiser staff, both Andy and Mary, have agreed to lead us in the pledges. If you will please stand, we'll say the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
And if you will remain standing, Pastor Schote from the Bastrop First Assembly of God has agreed to do our invocation this evening.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight to ask for your wisdom and direction in matters before the council in the city of Bastrop. We're thankful for your grace and mercy because you said that they're new each morning. Tonight, we'll be discussing matters that have lasting impact on the citizens and the future of our great community. You, O God, know the plans that you have for our community, and we believe that those plans are for growth, development, prosperity, and protection. Help us as citizens to trust the leadership that according to the 13th chapter of Romans states you have ordained and established. Help our leadership to make decisions that are not simply pleasing to our community, but decisions that will steer us into the great future you have for our community. It's impossible to please everyone, and we'd be foolish to strive to do so. So tonight, O God, let us strive to please you with our lives, our decisions, and our future. And it's in the name that's above all other names, Christ's name, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Schote. I really appreciate that. We are to the mayor's report, and Councilmember Schiff has been out of town, and my special gift to him is that I will have a very, very short mayor's report because we have a very, very long agenda. Since the last meeting 2 weeks ago, we've been to a ribbon cutting. We had a really great meeting with the county on an after-action report after Harvey with all the folks at the county, and several of us, the city manager and I and a couple of council members, attended the after-hours function that was held at Red Ridge Receptions back on September 14th. On Friday the 15th, I was at the BEDC Coffee Chat and was really encouraged by the participation that we had from citizens. Sean and his team do that quarterly, and if you have not already participated in that, I would really encourage citizens to come out and share their thoughts and views. It's greatly appreciated. We had a BEDC meeting last Monday, and I'm not going to talk about Saturday because I want Councilmember Ennis to talk about the lovely event that we had on Saturday, but I do want to thank Councilmember Ennis again for everything he did for the Mina Ward and the Minerva Delgado Park dedication that we had on Saturday. Earlier today, I was wearing my sticker. I went over to the county. Ms. Huber and I were there. Today was National Register to Vote. So it's evening, and you can't register anymore today, but if you are not registered to vote, there is an election in November, and I would encourage everyone to please participate and become a registered member. The last item that I have, there's several meetings coming up. Several of us are going to be at the TML, the Texas Municipal League annual conference in Houston is October 3rd through the 6th, and we will be going so we can divide and conquer and increase our knowledge of municipal goings on and get the leading edge things that we can do to help the community. But I promised Mickey at the library that I would talk about the big trucks will be at Bob Bryant Park on Saturday from 3 to 5, and then they will be showing the movie Monster Trucks. So if you like big trucks, it would make Mickey very, very happy if you would go check that out. I think there might be some of us on the dais that may go. Okay, that's my mayor's report. We're now on page 2. We're on item 6B. We're at council member reports. Councilmember Peterson, do you have anything to share with us? Councilmember Nelson?
Well, I'm going to let Bill go ahead and talk about the events of Saturday, but that was an outstanding event, and it showed a lot of hard work, and it was a great history lesson. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would encourage people to read about the genesis of this project.
Outstanding. Councilmember Schiff?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to apologize for kind of being out of pocket with the city for the last couple weeks. I had a very interesting trip to Israel, never been there before, very educational. I did go before that, but prior to that, I did go to the monthly meeting with the library board, and they have some very interesting things going on. I think the highlight was that they're creating a makerspace, creative effort at the library that is going to feature a 3D, three-dimensional printer that they are acquiring. So, and they're going to give lessons on how to use and how to print things out in 3 dimensions, make things. Not sure what those things are, but that's my report. Thank you.
It's a very cool project. Councilmember Ennis.
Well, as all of you know, on several occasions I've made mention of our program on Saturday. I'd like to say it was a joint effort of quite a few people. Cindy Genzel from the county, our own Sarah O'Brien with Main Street, Kathy Danielson with the Convention Center. There were all kinds of people involved. It exceeded our expectations. We originally ordered enough food for 100 people, and we turned out with well over 300. And it was an honor to be involved in it. It was a wonderful celebration, and I think we honored the Mena School appropriately, and there were approximately 20 former students there. And one young man came up to me, a young man, one of the former students in his mid-70s came up to me and with tears in his eyes after it was over and said, "This has been the most wonderful memory of my life." So with that being said, we feel like we pulled it off, and it was a testament to the city of Bastrop and to Bastrop County. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ennis. Councilmember Jones.
Okay, well, and I missed the last meeting too, and I was in Washington, D.C., meeting with all of our senators, representatives, new appointees. I was lobbying for the Farm Bill and promoting rural America. It was a great trip full of a lot of meetings, and love to have an interview with the newspaper to share with you what's going on and how that pertains to Bastrop. And I was at the planning and zoning meeting. I'm the liaison. I'm the council liaison for that. And I'll be there again this Thursday. And I just want to thank you, Bill. You made us proud for your work you did. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor and Council, I have just one thing to add for those that were not in attendance on Saturday and have an interest in viewing the program, and I would certainly encourage you to do so. Several of the speakers were really touching, but one especially was Minerva Delgado, who was the named defendant in the suit that ultimately sued the Bastrop Independent School District, really shared her story of what life was like post that decision. It was very touching, as was a Mexican-American student in the Bastrop Independent School District today who talked about her experiences and her passion and dream, that you really appreciate the significance of that decision in our past. But all of that to say that that presentation was recorded, and Colin is working on the edit of that program, and the first of next week we'll have the full program up, and then he will shorten that program down with some highlights probably by the end of next week. So stay tuned to the city's television channel, and there will be certainly worth reviewing, and if you were in attendance, it'd be worth watching again.
Great, thank you, City Manager. All right, we're on item number 7. We're at 7A, discuss proposed changes to the rules of procedure for the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas. City Manager.
Mayor and Council, one of the items that is included in the city's charter is the fact that you as a body should have rules of procedure. And essentially what this does is provide you an opportunity to review your own rules and the way you want to conduct your order of business. It really is customary that this happen annually, and I don't know that that's been the practice in Bastrop. The current rules of procedure were adopted 12 years ago on August 23rd, 2005, and I've included them in your packet for your review. One of the things that I would say in the future is we will put on our master agenda to annually review whatever rules of procedure you have the first meeting in July. And what that does is give new council members that are elected in May an opportunity to find their feet under their legs and go through a couple of meetings and understand the rhythm and some of the importance of those things. So we will have an annual review scheduled for the first meeting in July, but please know that these rules can be reviewed at any time and amended at any time throughout the year because they're your rules. One of the things that the charter provides is for the mayor to be the chief presiding officer of the city. So this was a project that the mayor and I worked together on to produce a draft copy of the rules of procedure that are before you. We made sure that the rules that you have before you incorporate our current customs, current practices, and then current laws that are in place in 2017. We used the City of Weatherford's council rule of procedure as a guide. The City of Weatherford, while could be considered a suburb of Fort Worth, is far enough. They're a standalone city, much like our relationship to Austin. So you do things differently when you're a standalone community than perhaps you do as a suburban city. So we put together this draft and really want to acknowledge that it is nothing more than a starting point of a discussion because these are your rules. So attached is the draft, and Article 1 provides for the authority, the applicability, the amendment, and the annual review. And essentially, it acknowledges the city charter language that's very clear. It's Section 3.13, Rules of Procedure, that grant you the right to determine your own rules of procedure. This document can be amended by simple majority, 3 of 5 votes. And again, it is just annual review. You can amend at any time. Article 2 begins to talk about the general rules of procedures and policies. And probably the most significant recommendation in this article is the adoption of the Rosenbergs Rules of Order, rather than adopting the Roberts Rules of Order. And this was one of the things that I think was intriguing to both the mayor and I about these particular rules. Rosenberg's rules were created by a retired Superior Court judge, Dave Rosenberg, who was elected to the Davis, California City Council, including a term as mayor after he retired from the bench. And after experiencing frustration from both council and the public trying to use Robert's Rules of Order that he found to be complex and difficult to read, he just developed his own rules. But what's most important about these particular rules is that they have been adapted to fit the most frequent procedures used in typical city council decision making. Once they were released, they received acclaim and endorsement as a very easy way to make orderly democratic decisions in a way that both council and the public can understand. This section also notes some of the practices and customs that I talked about. We now live stream our meetings on social media, and we broadcast those on the city's television channel via our cable providers. And so that particular section notes that as an important custom because we have a lot of people that view us on our social media as well as watch at home. So we've incorporated that into this document. Article 3 deals with parliamentary procedures, and really it is an adoption of a simple guide of the Rosenbergs Rules of Order that, again, incorporate basic ways to make motions, second, those types of ways of doing business. It also includes the language from Resolution R 2017-20 on public decorum that was adopted in April after I arrived in March. Section 3.12 is a new section, and I would really encourage all of you to own this and talk about this, because it provides a way for council to discipline its own members. It provides a process for council to follow when a council member or mayor violates the charter, rules of procedure, or any other ordinance of the city, or acts in a manner that causes embarrassment or disgrace to the city of Bastrop. It's one of the few articles in this, or few actions, I should say, in these rules of procedure that require a supermajority vote, because when you take action against each other, it really should be in one voice. Article 4 deals with the agenda order. It recognizes that our agendas are now produced in electronic format. It outlines the process for placing items on the agenda, and it acknowledges our current agenda process and format regarding time and how the agenda is styled. Article 5 deals with rules governing citizens' comments, and what I tried to do was capture to the best of my ability the practices that y'all have been following since I arrived here in March on how we do business with our citizens' comment. Article 6 adds the fact that now there are council liaisons to our boards and commissions, so that's included in the rules of procedure as well. So that is for the public at home, highlights of what are in the proposed rules of procedure. And at this point in time, Mayor, I'd like to turn it over to you to add your comments and facilitate that conversation, and I will take notes of your changes.
So one of the first things I'd like to comment on is here is Robert's Rules of Order. And one of the things that I find fascinating about it is people reference them a lot and have some misconceptions about what's actually in here. And a lot of times they go in expecting a list of the 4 things that you're supposed to do in the meeting, and you'll find that this document is written like an essay. So here's Robert's Rules of Order. Here is Judge Rosenbergs' Rules of Order. And one of the things that he specifically talks about is that the process, we are a part of the community. The process should not be something where you have to have a PhD in Robert's Rules of Order to understand what's going on at the meeting. And to have open and transparent government, it's a really good idea if everybody knows the rules, the people sitting on the dais, the people sitting in the audience, everybody involved in the process, pretty clear and simple, use simple words, get it done, follow the rules, everybody follow the same rules. So it was not a hard sell for me to jump over to the Rosenberg rules. For council already knows this, and most of you in the audience may know it, but also for those of you at home, the Rosenberg rules, the complete set, which is only this document, is a part of the packet. So if you have any questions or you want to read through it, it is there for your reference. The other part is that we wanted to make sure, and I'll just be really honest, I looked at it as, ooh, I'm the mayor, I get to make the rules. Do I like these rules? And then I tried to think of, ooh, I'm not the mayor, I'm really mad at what they're doing, I'm sitting in the audience. Do I still like these rules? And I really did try to read them both ways. It is obviously under a work session. We will not make a decision on it tonight. More than interested in feedback, but wanted people to know where we came from and how we worked together to come up with what you see proposed. So I'm open to any discussion by any council member if you have any comments.
Madam Mayor, I think it's a brilliant idea, a brilliant process. We know that the government moves, the wheels of government move extremely slow. There's no ease to applying necessary brakes through some bureaucratic requirement. And so I would like to see us move forward on this to keep the uniformity while making it much more simple, not only for us, but also for our citizens. So I really appreciate the city manager's work on this.
Any other comments, Councilmember Ennis?
I second that statement. It's a lot of work has gone into this, and I appreciate what you've done, and I think it will make it much easier for all of us to understand the ways we're going. One
other point that I wanted to make is that in the past, the charter allows, let me put it that way, the charter allows for the mayor to control the agenda. And sometimes that's done by, we're just not going to talk about something I don't want to talk about. And I don't think that's a really good way to run government. And what we've talked about before when we've had issues with quorum and explained that when we're sitting here as a full dais, it takes 3 votes. If we have a quorum, it takes 3 votes. And I feel like things should be on the agenda. If you can't get a motion and you can't get a second, you can't get a vote. So having behind-the-scenes arguments and making a very bureaucratic way to put something on the agenda seems to be defeating the purpose. So you'll find that the agenda, getting an item on the agenda is very straightforward. It does not get you a motion or a second or your 3 required votes.
And because I'm Switzerland, all you've got to do is call me, and I have the authority to put it on the agenda and consider it done. We will not play politics with the people's business if I am your city manager.
So, we don't really need a motion because this is just for session, but, and I fully appreciate that the packet was over 300 pages and you may not have had an opportunity to have given it all of your attention. So please, you're not, I know I'm speaking for the city manager as well, you're not going to hurt our feelings. It'll be better if we all have an opportunity to input. So please come forward with your input after you get a chance, or if you think of something after you get home.
I would like some direction. If y'all are comfortable with it, I'm more than happy to put it on the agenda on October 10th for adoption, or if you would like some additional time, I can move that to the second meeting in October, but it would be helpful if I receive some direction here.
Councilmember Ennis?
I make a motion that we put it on the, we don't need a motion.
No, it's not a motion, just a suggestion. You're okay with the first meeting in October?
Right.
Sounds,
I'm fine.
Seems like folks are fine with that. Linda, because, I've looked at it 27 times, so of course I've just noticed something. Let's go ahead and put in it that we intend to review them in July. Okay. Because the master calendar may come and go, city managers may come and go, but I don't think it'll hurt to say that our intention is to review it in July. Okay, with that, I'm about to put the wrong thing down. Now we are moving on to item 7B. And you may recall that back when I made my original appointments to boards and commissions back on June 25th, I had some recommendations at the end, and there was some discussions that were brought up, and we talked about needing to work on some of those things. And again, this is no motion, this is not a decision item, but this is a discussion, and the city manager has prepared, honestly, a checklist. She needs some direction from us as council so that she can prepare something for us to vote on. With that, I would encourage you to go to page 47, and you'll see some of the things that she's going to be asking for our input. City manager?
Thank you, ma'am. As the mayor indicated, during the board appointment process, we had some conversations publicly, and then several of you visited with me privately about some things, and I made a list. And what this agenda item represents is the list of those items that I need some direction on. The first is some board members are allowed to live in the city limits or the city's ETJ, while others are limited to the city limits. One of the challenges that Ann and I have uncovered with the advertising process of encouraging people to fill out applications is no two boards are consistent in their recruitment efforts, if you will. And so it's real easy and unconfusing if it's just a rule. But when the article or the advertisement that you put in the paper is super duper long, it's really sometimes off-putting to ask people to read, to figure out where they fit and where they don't fit. One of the things y'all have stressed throughout this process is for us to revamp that process. So my question to you is, do you have an interest in standardizing residency requirements for ease of advertisement and recruitment? And if so, what is the standard y'all would like to discuss and entertain?
Well, my suggestion would be that we continue to, I think we should continue to allow some folks from the ETJ into our boards and commissions. And if we were to make it so that every board and commission could have at least one from the ETJ, that would mean that you could apply to any commission, and every commission, you may or may not be selected, but you can apply and you could be selected if you were in the ETJ. I say that, it's possible that there's somebody that's already on the board that's, I'm just thinking and talking at the same time. If you've got, let's say you have only one ETJ person allowed on a board, and that position is not open for this particular year, and you put it out there, you could get applications from the ETJ and really not have that slot available. I don't know how you deal with that.
I would just remind you, because I know you know this, some of the boards already allow ETJ, so they may have several folks on there that are on the ETJ.
And that's fine. I'm saying, so I'm saying if each board had at least one, then you could say universally, if you're in the ETJ, you can apply. Unless there's not an ETJ slot available this time around, and I don't know how you're going to get around that one.
Would council entertain that we staff visit with the city attorney, and unless there is a state law requirement requiring residency, that you open it up and leave that to the mayor to make the appointments based on skill set, and then y'all debate that from a ratification standpoint?
I ask that you do that. I direct you to do that.
Because this could get super complicated, because some of the boards not only not limit it to the ETJ, but I think it's the BAIPP because it is about public art. If you've got somebody that is willing to serve in Bastrop that brings an artistic interest to that, we wouldn't want to deprive them of that.
Yeah, and I know, sitting on the EDC board for 18 years, that there were people outside of the city limits that were extremely capable, qualified, that we would have loved to have on that board, but couldn't because of the limitations that we had. So, I think opening it up to talented people in the area that are concerned is a good policy.
Gary, that's a great example, because the EDC board has 7 members. Those are 2-year terms. It's 4 and 3, and so you could every year have an ETJ. Right now there's 2 ETJ positions as a minimum, but we'll work on something. I guess the main thing is I don't hear anyone opposed to allowing folks who live in our ETJ to participate on our boards and commissions. Does anyone have heartburn about that?
I do.
Okay.
On some of our boards and commissions, they are specific to something that is like historic landmark, that is specific to an area of town or specific to an operation of the city of itself. And I question whether we shouldn't sit down with that board or commission and find out their recommendations on the work that they do, and how having folks from outside of the city be making decisions on things that affect just in-town residents.
That membership is driven by ordinance, so
Yes,
absolutely
it is, but
I understand what you're saying as that being a defined, but in general, if there's not an ordinance or a law against it, on other boards, are you opposed to ETJ residents?
As far as it follows as far as it doesn't negate the charge of the commissioner board or water down the charge of that board or commission, I'm certainly in.
Okay. No one else is keying their mic, so I think everybody else is okay with that in general.
I have some direction. The second item is we have boards that have various numbers of members ranging from as few as 3 to as many as 9. Is there a standardized number of members for each board that you would consider? And if yes, and there is, say, instead of having 9, you'd be interested in 7, a way to accomplish this can be over a period of several years by not replacing board members as their terms expire until reaching the recommended number of board members. So by making a recommendation, you are not saying we're going to take people off the board to reach this number. It would just be a process over time. I will speak on behalf of staff, and for the liaisons that have 9 members, that is an awful big committee to manage. And so 3 we know is the Ethics Commission, and it's problematic for a quorum. So somewhere between 3 and 9, perhaps there is a magic number that makes this work better. So that was the reason for the question.
I would encourage that magic number to not be divisible by 2 as you are thinking about it.
Could we use 6.5?
There's a 1 in every crowd. Any other comments?
Once again, are those are the boards that are defined by ordinance? Are we talking about those boards as well, or and would we have to revise those ordinances?
Yes.
I have a problem with some of those, but we can talk about that in specifics later on if you...
Is it just the historic board? Is that the
right.
only one that you have a problem with? And are they at 5? They're at 7 right now, aren't they?
7. But each position is defined according to a specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Talent, you might say.
So if the magic number became 7, there wouldn't be any impact to the Historic Landmark Commission.
Right.
Okay, so that,
But,
for instance, that would make planning and zoning go from 9 to 7. Does anybody have any heartburn with planning and zoning going from 9 to 7? And I will say, as a person who lived through this, planning and zoning had 9 people, and you are required to live inside the city limits. And that starts getting hard to get that many people. So is it correct to assume that 5 or 7 is an agreeable number? If there's, I need to double check on BEDC. 7 may be, I think 5's a minimum, and you can have as many as, but are we 5 or 7? Am I generally seeing nods? I'm taking that as nods, City Manager. Yes, sir.
Mayor, don't get me wrong. I want to make sure that we're incorporating the intent of some of these ordinances that have defined these boards and not negating that intent when we start making these decisions unilaterally.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, number 3.
I don't understand, so can we go back and visit this? The point of this is to get input. So if y'all are not comfortable with that, can you please define for me the information I need to bring to you so that I can give you a comfort level from which to make a decision? And the only reason that I say that is we have 13 boards and commissions. That is 13 ordinances or 13 resolutions that will create individual agenda items and a lot of work. And I'm not opposed to the work, but I have been charged by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Schiff and seconded by this body that we be efficient at our work. And so a little more direction would be helpful.
Well, that's why I'm thinking 5.
This is my direction to you. I would like you to bring back your recommendation of reducing the number of boards and commissions that we have and look at submitting to us an argument for 5 to 7 people on those boards or commissions.
More than prepared to argue 5 to 7. What I am unwilling to do is to argue for or against any of the 13 boards and commissions that you have.
Would that be something the mayor
That
could
is
look
a
at?
policy decision for which you have been elected, and these boards work for you and provide you policy decision, and by charter, that's not my wheelhouse.
And
What I
excuse
will-
me, I did it,
I'm sorry, I was just going to share with you that I was in a meeting with several mayors, and several of them, because of the same kind of growing pains that we're going through, have reduced the number of boards, and I have on my calendar to meet with one in particular city mayor who, they took their boards from 22 to 10.
okay, well, I just was making the assumption that you were working with Connie on that, Linda, that's why I said that. But, so then Connie, I would like you to reduce the number of boards, and Linda, look at between 5 and 7.
Thank you.
And let me just offer this, I would recommend 7. It's just a nice number. It helps with quorum. When you've got 7, you've got leeway. When you get down to 5, and we've seen this with this council, if 1 or 2 of you are gone, now we've got a problem. 7, if 4 people show up, we're good to go. Okay, so.
It's a reasonable argument.
Okay.
And we already have several boards at 7 too, so. But Councilmember Jones, I promise I'm not prepared to bring it to council yet, but I am doing research on that and trying to make sense of what boards it makes sense to pull together. So I appreciate that input.
Mayor and council, number 3 is the city charter, which is the city's constitution, establishes term limits of 2 3-year terms. The question that has been raised is there a need to set term limits for participation on each board? Now, let me clarify what this is being styled at, is that a person would be limited for the number of years that they could serve on a board, not the number of years for which they could volunteer. So if you set your term limits on your boards and commissions like your term limits are, they could serve 6 years on a board. And then they could serve 6 years on another board. And what that allows is citizens who want to continue to volunteer would be encouraged to complete an application seeking an appointment on a different board. But term limits would encourage new ideas, would allow for broader citizen participation over on each board over time. And I believe the mayor can affirm that through this process of how she has done appointments, there has been a lot of positive feedback from the community, and she's, I think, seen a real interest in people going, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to participate. And with the boards and commissions fair that we're going to be talking about that y'all have encouraged staff to put together, giving them opportunities and knowing that at a date certain that the board will rotate and they can get to what they're really interested in sometimes adds participation. So that just speaks to the filter that this is being offered.
I think it's a brilliant idea. The only thing that I would ask is that we stagger the terms to ensure we have a good mix of old and new.
Absolutely. Good input. Any other comments?
I agree with it.
Councilmember Peterson, you okay? All right.
Mayor and council, there were 2 boards that Mayor Schrader did not appoint members to, which included the Vision Task Force and the North Area Form-Based Codes. I need head nods that y'all are in agreement for the reasons that she stated at the time as to why she was not making appointments, so that I can remove those from the board and commission ordinance and bring that forward for those to be term limited out.
Comments? I'm seeing head nods. Anybody against?
No issue.
No issue. Okay.
The next one is more of a holistic approach to board appointments. Currently, appointments are made in June of each year by the mayor. The fiscal year is October 1st to September 31st. So it makes it complicated when our boards and commissions come and go at a time different than our fiscal years. Part of the charge that you have given me as city manager and the cabinet and I worked on last week is a work plan, and we will be bringing to you in October a 5-year work plan that has just under 180 items on it. And there are a number of items for which board and commission involvement will be critical to offering you policy recommendations for which their purpose is appropriate. And so one of the things that the mayor and I have visited with as she was challenged with making appointments immediately upon her election and trying to get oriented with being mayor, that we have worked on an outline for an appointment process that seems to work, moving it to October. The first thing would be is that July 1st, we would mail citywide as well as to our ETJ a newsletter highlighting all of the boards and commissions at that time and provide their purpose, their meeting schedule, and some requirement, or not necessarily requirement, but some of the things that would be helpful to be on that board so we could encourage people to apply and participate. We would post the notice in the newspaper, we would post it on the city's website as well as our city Facebook page. We would host a board and commission volunteer fair that would be scheduled on the calendar the 3rd Tuesday of July at the Bastrop Convention and Exhibit Center. And the date of our next fair, if y'all approve this process, would be Tuesday, July 17, 2018. And the point of that board and commission fair would be this, is that each board and commission, as well as any volunteer group that supports the operations of the city, would have a table. And it would literally be a trade show where our citizens could come, they would have a welcoming speech by the mayor, and then could literally go board to board, figure out what each board does, what their purpose is, visit with the chairman, visit with staff, and really get a sense of, wow, I had no idea this was an opportunity for me to get involved. And because we count on our volunteers throughout the city, we would provide opportunities again for agencies that support our mission to participate in that as well. The applications would be due on August 15th. As a part of this process, we will create a new application that focuses not on who you know, but what you know, so that the qualifications can be paired with the actual board. One of the things that would also be helpful is if you would agree to participate in the interviews of each applicant. And even though the mayor by charter is allowed to appoint the applicants, it's been my experience through the years that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to meet our citizens who have an interest, find out what it is that they really want to do, and it's also been my experience that they don't necessarily correlate what they're passionate about with words of the names of the board. And so these interview processes begin to go, oh, so-and-so would be great over here. And so you have an opportunity to begin to pair passion with purpose. And that makes for a really dynamic organization when your volunteer group is engaged and own the purpose of the board because they're passionate about it. And that provides an opportunity for that to go that way. The mayor would submit his or her board and commission appointment at the first council meeting in September for ratification by the council effective October 1st. On our calendar then would be the first Thursday in October of each year, we would hold a board and commission orientation that would include ethics training from our city attorney. The orientation would cover broad topics such as open meetings and Open Records Act, an overview of the city's work plan, the relationship that these boards and commissions work for you as policy, not for me as operations, and we would educate them on the charter and their purpose as well. The first board or commission meeting following that orientation would be a orientation specific to each board conducted by the staff liaison that covers such specific items as the process for placing items on the individual board agenda, the work plan items for the year, and any specific law or ordinance governing the board and commission. Planning and zoning is one that would have a very detailed orientation because state law that they must follow is pretty specific. That would be different than the orientation that the park board would receive. So if I have consensus for this, then we will include this appointment process in the board and commission appointments or ordinance that governs their appointments.
Councilmember Ennis?
I'm supportive of it, the whole plan.
Yeah, this body has spoken many times about being more open and inclusive, and this is an absolutely brilliant way to do so. Engaging our citizens is the way we should do our business.
Seeing nods. Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Councilmember Jones? Okay.
Item number 6 is funding is included in the fiscal year 2018 budget to host an annual boards and commissions volunteer banquet that acknowledges and celebrates the contributions of our boards, commissions, and volunteers, such as our Friends of the Library and Citizens on Patrol, as well as our chaplains that support the police department. This annual event would replace their attendance at the city Christmas party because we're not going to be having a city Christmas party anymore. Staff has elected to move that to a New Year's celebration. We find with the special events schedule that this community maintains that there are multiple events during the month of December on Friday night, Saturday night, that prevent our staff from being able to come and celebrate because they've got to get up tomorrow and work. And so we've taken a poll, and our organization has said, you know, Christmas is too busy for us, and we will move this to January. So by doing an annual board and commission volunteer banquet, we're going to acknowledge their purpose, celebrate their success, thank them for their volunteer commitment to this community. This board and commission fair will provide plaques to those that were not reappointed or chose not to apply so that we can thank them for the contribution that they have provided to this community. And then we will also provide service pins, whether it's 5, 10, 15, or 20 year. And we'll do that by boards so we can, as collectively as a group, appreciate what each board does, some of the benefits and contributions that they've made, and really celebrate the important role that our volunteers play in providing great government here in Bastrop.
Everybody okay with that?
What could possibly be wrong with food and kudos?
It's a win-win.
Well, with that in mind, it's going to be Thursday, November 9th at the Bastrop Convention Center from 6:30 to 8:30. If that's not already on the calendar, we'll be putting that on the calendar. And just for calendaring purposes, future banquets will always be the second Thursday of November annually. That ties into board appointments ending September 30th. That gives us an opportunity to thank those that are leaving, and it gives new appointments at least one board meeting before the board and commission banquet to at least know what they're a part of when they come to be thanked for their service. The next item, Mayor and Council, is the attendance of board and commission members. Currently, the way it is written, it requires for an annual summary to be presented at the April meeting. And what we are advocating is that board and commission attendance will be updated monthly by the staff liaison, tracked by our city secretary. And we will present that annual summary to you in June. But with attendance being collected on a monthly basis, when we note we have a specific member becoming an issue, it will be addressed according to the policy that is established with timely communication between the staff liaison, the city manager, and the mayor. But this change is being dictated by the fact we're moving board appointments from June to October. And I'm going to assume consensus based on the fact y'all are comfortable with the other changes.
The only thing that I would ask on this is if we have a council liaison to that they be included in that discussion.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. That's a great point. And honestly, what I didn't want to do is address attendance issues once a year, because sometimes people have problems and maybe they just need to step away for a year or whatever, but it's very onerous on people who are volunteering if the board is struggling to make a quorum and meetings are having to be rescheduled and stuff. So I know that as council liaisons, you'll let me know if there's a pending issue, but absolutely should be a part of that conversation. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments? Thank you.
Mayor and council, the next item is several of you have suggested, in the spirit of open and transparency, that the meetings of the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation and the Planning and Zoning Commission be broadcast live on the city's television channel and live streamed on social media. BEDC is currently recorded and broadcast at a later date. We support, as staff, broadcasting Planning and Zoning Commission meetings because one of the things that y'all have challenged us with in our work plan is to achieve a level of expedited efficiency related to our zoning and development processes, which means final authority on some items could rest with Planning and Zoning. So it would make sense for the public to be able to track those items, whether it is with Planning and Zoning Commission or with council, to know how the people's business is being conducted. If y'all are in agreement with that, then we can schedule staff to be present to not only record these, but to begin to program our television station with these meetings in mind.
Is that agreeable to everyone? I was really going to push hard if you guys didn't agree. I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's beneficial for our citizens. We should take advantage of the equipment that we have. I am apologizing to the city manager now. I realize there's one thing I want to have clarity on. If we do end up at a number around 7, I know that legislatively from the state, the Economic Development Board has 2-year terms, but for the majority, not all, because we couldn't possibly do everything in a universal manner, but most of our boards have a 3-year term. And if we had 7, we could have 2, 2, and 3, so that there would be some continuity from year to year. Do you guys have an opinion about whether people are serving 2-year or 3-year terms?
Is that defined in the charter?
No.
It's not?
What she referenced that was defined in the charter were our terms, council member terms of 3 years, 2 3-year terms. But the different ordinances address different things. The only notable exception that I know we do not have an option on is the Economic Development Corporation has 2-year by law terms. But do you guys have a strong feeling or opinion? Okay, well, we may do some investigating, but I didn't want to bring you 3 if you guys all wanted to, or vice versa, so I just wanted to get some input on that. Okay. Thank you very much, and City Manager, thank you so much for, I know you pulled together comments from all of us and from citizens.
The last thing, Mayor, is there any other suggested change that y'all have that I did not have on my notes or failed to make note that you would like to see included in this update?
I think they're all going to their next agenda item, so we're going to take that as a no. Okay, if you're following along, we are now on 8A, and Sean Kirkpatrick, the executive director, is traveling, so we are going to push that off until next month and get our update from him when he's able to physically be here. So we are now on 8B, receive presentation on the unaudited monthly financial report for the period ending August 31st. Ms. Waldron.
So in your packet, you do have your report for August 31st, 2017. I'm going to just hit some highlights here. As you can see, the four major funds fiscal year were 11 months in, which is approximately 92% complete. I have highlighted in green the funds that are in good shape as far as being a positive to that 92%, and the hotel motel fund, as far as the revenue is concerned, is a little behind projected. And so that's the only fund that is showing a red. I wanted to point out on the sales tax, I am showing that we should be on track and crossing my fingers that we're going to make budget. I don't see an issue with making our budgeted number, which will come in at approximately 4% over our fiscal year 16 actual figures. Did y'all have any other questions about any of the other reports? I know y'all are going to see me a lot tonight.
We're all keeping our fingers crossed on the sales tax. Looks like we're going to be close, though. Any comments from Ms. Waldron? Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're now at citizen comments, and I have the lovely Miss Ann Beck.
I just want to say, wow, I am really impressed with the thinking, the planning, and the ideas that have been presented tonight about boards. This is fantastic. This is what I think makes Bastrop so great, because you aren't just inflexible. You are moving around in different directions and including everybody in your decisions, and thank you very much. Bill Ennis, thank you so much for the lovely program on Saturday. Are there any programs left? I have a Mexican-American person who didn't know about it. I didn't want to give up mine, so if I may get some from you, I would appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what I really want to talk to you about is where is Bastrop going? What are we going to do about getting people off of 71 and into Bastrop once that flyover is finished? And you know our DMO is not up and running yet, and they're going to do a great job at some point in time in advertising Bastrop. But one of the things we have to have is good signs from TxDOT telling everybody about Bastrop and not just naming 151 Loop or 21. We have to have some names there. As I was coming from Smithville heading west, I saw a sign that said Tahitian Drive, and then it said 21 and 150. There is nothing about our marvelous state park that is one of our big draws for Bastrop and tourism. Yes, as you get off, if you got off at Tahitian Drive and you went down the access road, there is a brown sign that says Bastrop State Park, but that's too late. You've missed the turnoff. We have just got to get TxDOT to put Bastrop State Park on there. The next word that I think that is essential to us is we do need to get the name Bastrop on our next exit, but it needs to say historical Bastrop, in my opinion. That's what we talk about in Bastrop all the time. And in that name, and I've never seen that on any exit sign, but somehow or another we've got to convince them to put that up for us, or Bastrop is going to have to find a sign coming between Smithville and Bastrop, a billboard that says visit historic Bastrop. But we've got to have the name Bastrop on that exit sign. Right now it says Hassler Boulevard. What does that mean to somebody coming off of 71 who doesn't know Bastrop? It says 21. I think in 150, or it says 150, it does not say the name Bastrop. I know a lot of people have probably been talking about this. This is not a new request, but I just know that it takes a long time to accomplish something with TxDOT. And so I want you all to start working on this, if you're not already working on it right now, to try to get that correct signage. Again, coming from the west, from Austin to Smithville, do we have the name Bastrop on our exit? No. We have 409, or we have Hassler Boulevard. Again, we've got to have the name Bastrop. So good luck. I hope somebody can figure out how to make this happen.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. I'm confident it will be addressed, and I think I know a staff person who's going to visit with you here in just a minute. Okay. We're working on it. Okay. Thank you very much. Linda Curtis.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm Linda Curtis with Independent Texans, and I want to talk to you about water. And I'm really here to get your advice, and I know you can't give it to me now, but I'd like for somebody to get back to me, perhaps the city manager. Because here's what I want to share with you. I'm very excited to let you know that landowners who have been trying to get a seat at the table and to be heard in court for 2 years now on the case with NDOP, now known as Recharge. These are Bastrop and Lee County landowners, will finally get at least a first hearing in the 21st District Courtroom of Judge Carson Campbell on October 18th. 2 years ago, NDOP was awarded one of the 3 mega permits on the aquifers, especially the Simsboro, underlying Bastrop, Lee, Milam, and Burleson counties. And prior to that decision, an administrative law judge in a contested case ruled that because landowners did not own wells in the right place, they could not dispute NDOP's demand for 56,000 acre feet. The judge did let Aqua Water dispute the permit, and Aqua and NDOP settled, and NDOP was awarded a stair-stepped permit for 46,000 acre feet. Aqua received a financial settlement approved. All of this was approved by the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District. Meanwhile, the landowners appealed that decision, having been kept out of the dispute. It's a dispute over party status, and the landowners' attorneys interpret the Texas Supreme Court on the Day decision that if that water is underneath where you live, whether you have a well in it or not, you own it. So this is a very important case. What's coming into the first hearing is just about jurisdiction, but if Carson Campbell rules, yes, you're in the right place, the next hearing will be even more important on, will these landowners get party status? And if they do, this whole NDOP case is going to be reopened, and it's going to be wild. I'm here to, knowing that as the Bastrop City Council, there's not a whole lot you can do right now except get informed, and I'm not sure how to make sure you get informed. I have 30 seconds to tell you that with the attorneys that had been under discussion, so far as we could tell, it appeared to us for the city attorney's job that none of them had specific and appreciative water experience. I don't know if I'm right about that. That's what our attorneys thought. So now that you are probably going to move towards hiring a specific firm, maybe there's something that you all can do with that information, and I'll be glad to follow up. And I now have to be quiet unless you want to ask me a question. Yes,
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Madam Secretary, I think that's all the citizen comments that we had. Okay. We're at the consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone on council wants pulled from the consent agenda? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to pull something from the consent agenda? Madam Secretary, if you'll read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Item 10A, consider action to approve minutes from the September 12, 2017 meeting. Item 10B, consider action to approve the second reading of resolution number R-2017-69, of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving the expenditure of Bastrop Economic Development Corporation funds for the Technology Drive/MLK Infrastructure Project in an amount exceeding $10,000, repealing all resolutions in conflict and establishing an effective date. Item 10C, consider action to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2017-23 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, related to Chapter 3, titled Building Regulations, Chapter 10, titled Subdivisions, Chapter 14, titled Zoning, and the articles within Chapter 10, Section 8, titled Reservations, references within Chapter 3, titled Building Regulations, Chapter 10, titled Subdivisions, and Chapter 14, titled Zoning, related to fees, and deleting Section 10.03.003, titled Subdivision and Development Escrow Fees in its entirety, providing a repealing clause, providing a severability clause, providing a savings clause, and providing for an effective date. And this concludes the consent agenda.
Madam Secretary, I'm so glad you got to read it because it was a long one when I had to read it last time. We've heard the consent agenda. I'm happy to take a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. All right, we are in the middle of page 3 at 11A. Consider action to approve resolution number R2017-79 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, supporting the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department proposed public plan for the 135-acre site formerly known as the Lost Pines Golf Club, with emphasis on outdoor programming, outdoor education, and hiking and biking trails, strongly encouraging TDWD to build a tribute green to preserve and educate future generations of the important role that the Lost Pines Golf Course played in the Bastrop State Park's history, providing a repealing clause and providing an effective date.
I make a motion. Well, I'd like to explain what it is, just very quickly, if you don't mind.
On August 22nd, the City Council received a presentation from the superintendent at the Bastrop State Park on the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department's proposed public use plan for the 135-acre site where Lost Pines Golf Club was previously located. In addition, that same evening, Trey Job, our Managing Director of Public Works and Leisure Services, brought forward a resolution from the Park Board that was in support of this development proposed plan by the park. That evening, you offered direction that you would be in support of this plan by the Bastrop State Park as long as we included the need for a tribute green to serve as a symbol to preserve the past and educate future generations on the important role that the golf course played. And at that meeting, representatives from the state park acknowledged that they would be very willing to ensure that that was incorporated in their history. So by way of background, that is what this item is for your consideration.
I'd like to also add, along these same lines, that there is a second public hearing scheduled for October 19th, and this, if this is approved tonight, it would allow them to have that prior to that public meeting. Unless we have any questions, any other questions for the city manager, I do have a citizen signed up to speak. Does anybody have any questions for the city manager? Mr. Tommy Claiborne.
Well, thank you, council members and mayor, and thank you, Ann, for bringing attention to the need for signs, because with my memory, I'm afraid that sometimes when I'm coming 71, going east, I think I'm coming into Bucky, Texas. So I think the need for signs about historic Bastrop is important. I'm not here to beat a dead horse. I'm here to gently stroke an old thoroughbred that may be on its last legs, the golf course. I know that there's been a lot said about everything that's going on with the golf course, and that you're going to decide whether you want the state to turn it into trails and stuff like that. What I'm hoping that you'll consider is don't nail the door shut. Leave the door open a little bit, because I've heard recently that there may be state funding for the golf course. Now, like I say, that's something that may or may not happen, but just don't nail it shut. One of the things, again, I want to thank Bill and everybody else on the council about this last Saturday's program. It made me so proud to be from Bastrop. It meant so much to me because all that 20 that stood up, they've been my friends for all these years. And to see this happening was just wonderful. And if you remember the program, there was a professor from A&M that described the lawsuit. Now, it was a short program, but the main focus of it was education, education, and education, and the difference and how much important teachers are into improving everything going on. Minerva said it beautifully. And then when you look at what you're saying, the important role that Lost Pines Golf Course played in Bastrop's park history, providing a revealing clause, it still could be an important learning thing, because there's so many good students that came on the golf course, learned from teachers there. The golf course and the park should be a gym. It is a drawing. It is an asset to Bastrop. So when you do consider this, please keep an open mind and just say, okay, well, maybe that old horse ain't died. Maybe it's got a little sea biscuit in it or something. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claiborne. Council, any comments? Happy to take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, and I'm with Tommy. Can I speak to Tommy? I'm so sad about the golf course closing, and I'd like to talk to you more if you have time. And in the 1 year that I dedicated so much time into understanding why we are where we are, and if there's any way to open a door again, I'll be standing right next to you. But right now, I mean, I wholeheartedly want to move forward with this motion, and I appreciate the state park for all the planning that they've done, and that they want to do this tribute green to give the kiddos a place to, you know, hit that ball around outside and maybe have a little vision of what it used to be like.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones.
A second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Jones, a second from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
I vote yes with a very troubled heart, but I vote yes.
Okay, I have unanimous approval for R 2017-79. We're now moving on to item 11B, consider action to approve resolution R 2017-74 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an emergency water interconnect agreement between the City of Bastrop and Aqua Water Supply Corporation, and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and establishing an effective date. Good evening, Mr. Jobe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This was brought to you on September the 12th. And we're just bringing it back for some action tonight. We talked a little bit about having the emergency interconnect in case there's some issues in the field that we need a little assistance, and we're going to be approaching other water systems to do the same. So tonight we just bring it back.
I move for approval.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff, a second from Councilmember Jones. Is there any discussion? Trey, it's out at 304, right?
304 was actually eliminated, probably at loop 150, and here I have some. Let me pull something up.
Because in the backup, either it didn't have a map or I couldn't find the map, but.
So this is what we looked at the last meeting. There was a connection at 304.
Yeah.
There was one at Loop 150 and one at Highway 95 at Old McDade Road, and we'll probably eliminate the one at 304.
Okay, so there'll be two, but whatever, you're going to work it out with them
Yes.
and put them in the right spot.
And tonight's action will allow us to enter into contract and get this worked out.
Okay, great. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a unanimous approval on R2017-74. We're on 11C, consider action to approve resolution number R2017-75 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving and adopting the financial management policy, making various provisions related to the subject, repealing any resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date. Good evening again. Ms. Waldron.
Yes, we are bringing this policy with no changes. We're just bringing it back up to your attention. We would like to put it as part of our budget process each year to review this policy and to make changes as needed. And so it's really just being brought. There's some new council members that may not have seen this policy, so.
My understanding is then from now on, we
Yes.
will be doing it at this time of the year.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Waldron?
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second, a motion from Councilmember Nelson, a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That's a unanimous approval on Resolution R2017-75. We're now on 11D. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, I need to recuse myself from making a decision on item 11D because I'm affiliated with one of the recipients.
Councilmember Ennis, do you need to?
I need to recuse myself. Fill that form.
I still have a quorum.
Nobody else leave.
Hi, Ms. O'Brien.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Oh, wait, hang on. Did I read it? I don't think I read it. I think they recused. I think I have to read it. Sorry, I have to hang on. Consider action to approve resolution number R2017-76 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, establishing organizational funding amounts contingent upon contract agreement deliverables funded from Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund for fiscal year 2017-2018 and establishing an effective date. Ms. O'Brien.
Yes, Mayor and Council, based on some of the priorities that you all set at your retreat earlier this summer, staff has spent the last 3 or 4 weeks meeting one-on-one individually with all of our applicants for our Tier 2 hotel occupancy tax funding for fiscal year 18. We hope later this year we will bring back a revised policy for next year, but in the interim we wanted to make sure that we had some one-on-one conversations, talked about how we can help both from the city side, and Visit Bastrop was in on those conversations as well, to better leverage the dollars that we're spending with these organizations on their special events and promotional activities. We've also come up with some requirements and some deliverables for each of the organizations to receive funding, and we had a lot of really good, productive conversations, so we feel pretty comfortable with the recommendations that we're making tonight. Just a side note for you and the public, at our next council meeting on October 10th, we will have representatives from the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association here to do a brief presentation to council on the proper uses of hotel occupancy tax, and all of our users will attend a workshop earlier that afternoon at 3 p.m. so that they can all become familiar with the law before receiving the funding this fiscal year. We are recommending a total of $224,985 to 9 different organizations. I do want to point out Bastrop Juneteenth is not showing funding coming from hotel occupancy tax because we are funding them out of Bastrop Power and Light this year. So I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. O'Brien?
It looks like a job well done.
and it was a team effort. Tracy Waldron and Heather in the finance department, Dale at Visit Bastrop, and myself. So we're excited about how this will work this year.
We appreciate you guys working together. For those at home that may not be looking at the full packet, I want to put in perspective that the request was for $367,553. Of that, we are awarding $224,985 if this should be approved, as compared to last year of $181,679. So it's a substantial increase, although I know if you are a worthy organization that's asked for money and you haven't gotten it all, you may feel that it is just shy of being completely a good idea.
I move that we approve this resolution.
I have a motion to approve. Linda, do you want to talk?
I'll let you second, then I'll.
I second. I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion, City Manager?
Sarah, one of the things that we probably need to visit so that we provide appropriate expectations is there isn't going to be a mid-year with leftover money.
That's correct. You guys set a policy earlier this year with a reserve balance in the hotel occupancy tax account. With the funding of Visit Bastrop, we have no intention of doing a Tier 3 funding pot this year. We do hope to bring back next summer for fiscal year 19 a different process for you guys to consider.
And I did not want all of this to be approved and people be waiting for that next call of action that's not coming.
Thank you for clarifying that. I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff and a second from Councilmember Jones. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2017-76 is approved with a 3-0 vote, with Councilmember Ennis and Councilmember Peterson recusing themselves. We're now moving on to item 11E, consider action to approve resolution R 2017-77 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving and adopting the investment policy and investment strategies, approving the list of qualified brokers, making various provisions related to the subject, and providing an effective date. Hi, Ms. Waldron.
Hello. So the Public Funds Investment Act requires that the governing body reviews and approves this policy annually. I realize that the markups of the policy are quite colorful, but most of them are just some cleanup errors with trying to get the policy more in line with the Public Funds Investment Act. There was no major investment changes really to speak of. One thing that our policy did not have that the Act requires is the information about the council's fiduciary responsibility with this policy. And so it's in the policy now. So I did want to point that out. But otherwise, there was...
It did sort of jump off the page, didn't it?
It was a big red box. So.
Yeah.
It's not good to have red ink on.
When it starts with the City Council holds ultimate fiduciary responsibility.
I thought y'all might want to know that you have. Yes.
Are there any questions for Ms. Waldron?
I move that we approve this resolution.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. I have a second from Councilmember Peterson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That's a unanimous approval on Resolution R 2017-77. We are now at 11F, public hearing on the Hunters Crossing Public Improvement District ongoing service plan and proposed assessment levy. Consider any objections to the proposed assessments and consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2017-26 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving the updated service plan, including provisions related to assessments for the Hunters Crossing Public Improvement District, approving a fiscal year 2018 assessment role for the district and containing other provisions related to the Hunters Crossing Public Improvement District and the Hunters Crossing Local Government Corporation, and providing for an effective date, and move to include on the September 28th special council meeting, that's 2 days from now, I might add, for a second reading. Ms. Waldron or City Manager? Ms. Waldron, you're on.
Yes. So this is a public hearing that is required by the Local Government Code, Chapter 372, regarding our public improvement district. This is just a comparison between the assessments for fiscal 17 and the assessments that we are proposing for 18. The capital assessments come straight out of the service and assessment plan. They are the only thing that is changing from one year to the next. The single family last year was $319 per lot, and it's $338 per lot in fiscal 18. I also want to point out that the budget for the public improvement district is in our city budget, so it's already a part of the budget document. Any questions on the assessments?
Council, any questions for Ms. Waldron? I'm opening the public hearing. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak that didn't have an opportunity to sign up? Seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing, and I'm happy to take a motion. Make sure you include that it goes on the 28th, please.
I move we approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ennis and a second from Councilmember Peterson, I think it was. Yes, Ennis and Peterson. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
It's universal approval on item 11F. We're moving to 11G. Consider an action to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2017-22 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2017-2018, October 1st, 2017 through September 30th of 2018, providing that expenditures for said fiscal year be made in accordance with said budget, providing a severability clause, establishing an effective date. Ms. Waldron.
Yes, so this is a second reading. I wanted to point out we have found a few errors in the budget document. The main one I want to mention tonight is page 25. When we converted it, I don't know, it just dropped. On the page that lists out the community support funding, there was a name left off. Bastrop County Food Pantry will be getting the $16,158 that has no name by it. This will be fixed in the final document that gets put out on the website, but just wanted to point that out.
And Council, I know we've spent quite a bit of time with this document. Ms. Waldron confirmed for me that we will all be receiving our booklet, because we know we'll be referencing that as we go through the year. Between that and the work plan, we'll know exactly what we're doing through the year, and that will be available for the public.
Yeah, it'll be on the website.
On the website. So, any other questions for Ms. Waldron? Just again, want to thank you and your staff and all of the city staff that have put countless hours into this document, not to mention the sleepless nights and nonstop work that the city manager has done. Happy to take a motion.
I move that we approve this ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff and a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any further discussion on the budget? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Okay, that's just too big of a deal, and we're going to have a round of applause. That's a lot of hard work. All righty, we're on 11H. Consider action to ratify the vote on the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, which results in more revenues from an ad valorem tax than the previous year. Ms. Waldron. This is legal stuff, right?
This is a state law requirement that we ratify this vote. So yes, I need the motion stated just like I have it typed on your staff report.
Madam Mayor, I move to ratify the vote just taken to approve the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, which will raise more revenues from ad valorem taxes than the previous fiscal year.
I have a motion from Councilmember Nelson.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Peterson. Is there any further discussion on 11H? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Universal approval, it makes Ms. Waldron very happy, right? We've done everything we're supposed to. Moving on to 11I, consider action to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2017-25 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting the tax rate and levying ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2017-2018 to provide revenue for the payment of current expenditures, providing a severability clause, and establishing an effective date. Ms. Waldron.
So this is just the second reading of the ordinance to approve the .564 that we have proposed.
I move for approval.
I have a motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Second.
I have a second from...
Point of order,
Oh,
Madam
sorry.
Mayor. I believe the motion needs to be read exactly as it's presented in the
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Schiff, you
I
let
will
me
move. I
down.
thought about it. I saw it's an order. I'm sorry.
Here, you want to...
Oh, I even put it in caps.
You got it?
Actually, let me. I'll steal off yours. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.5640, which is effectively a 5.2% increase in the tax rate.
I have the proper motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff. Can I have a second? I have a second from Councilmember Peterson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That's unanimous approval for item 11I. We're on 11J, hold public hearing to solicit input from citizens regarding the City of Bastrop's parks and recreation needs and priorities and discuss a proposed park projected to be submitted to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department for grant funding, and consider action to approve resolution number R2017-78 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving an application to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Division for a 50% match grant for the total amount of $500,000 for the development of Phase 2 of the Minerva Delgado Park, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents for the grant submission and establishing an effective date. Do we have anything to present before I open the public hearing? Trey or you or anybody? We got nothing? We got nothing. So I'm opening the public hearing. Does anybody want to make any comments for what they would like to see out at Delgado Park? Madam Secretary, is anybody signed up to speak?
No, Mayor.
All right. Seeing no one rushing to the podium, we're closing the public hearing. And you need a motion to apply for the grant, or no?
Yes. Are you going to?
Now I have something to present. I don't want to put a preconceived notion in anybody's mind.
Well, there you go, Mr. Jobe. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for saving the best for last. And I appreciate that as always.
That is just wrong, Mr. Jobe. Just absolutely wrong.
Well, this is a lot more fun than budget numbers. So, just a quick overview of the project. May 9th, we dedicated to 3.06 acres. August 8th, we approved the improvements for the park. Again, we spoke earlier about the historical marker. We had our first public hearing September 20th. 7 people were in attendance. A main concern was lighting, and that was all the parks pretty much wide. We started construction Monday as far as the playscape. The 26th is the public hearing for tonight. And then October 1st, we'll be submitting for the grant, if approved. And I just have a couple of renderings here of what we're looking at, just to inspire everybody to make sure this thing gets through.
Mayor and Council, what really makes this spectacular is the landscaping, and one of the things in our work plan is to work with the Texas prison system, who has a landscaping program, and the warden has visited with both the mayor and I, looking for opportunities for them to have real-life projects that they could design and landscape the park. And this is certainly an opportunity for that to occur along with the gateways. But what really, I think, makes this wonderful is if we'll go back to the night that we had the woman that came forward and was pregnant, and she was walking along the street, and her child were hit. She was walking on the street looking for an activity or a place to take her children to play. And what's great about this particular park and the way that Trey and his team is designing it is the walking trail around that is actually going to be in a fence, and it's going to be separated from the vehicular traffic. So imagine the playscape and the trail and your children and babies being able to play in there and not having to worry about running out in the parking lot and all of that. So I never want us to lose sight of what caused us to really focus on this particular area and marry the Delgado Park in the North Bastrop area, because it is really an essential element to the neighborhood up there, and this park with the landscaping and all of that really is going to be a fabulous amenity for that park when fully built.
Mr. Job, just for clarification, it's my understanding that what is funded both with the current fiscal year that we're in and the one that will start on October 1st will be restrooms, a playscape, the parking lot, and the road to get to the parking lot. Is that clear?
Correct. Yeah, there'll be a temporary roadway. The parking will be done this fiscal year, since you just approved the budget. We'll also, the playscape, the swing set, and the restroom, that's correct. And the fencing, sorry.
And then the landscaping will be something that we'll figure out how we're going to address. But I don't want anyone to think that 90 days from now it's going to look like that picture. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
This is what we're going to apply to finish out.
I know, I'm Debbie Downer, but I just want to set expectations.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Phase 2 would be the basketball courts on that. Phase 2 would be the trail on that picture. Phase 2 would be the roundabout that connects the entrance to the parking lot, and maybe some of the sidewalks, but...
Yeah, and there's some additional seating and things of that nature.
So, and when you say phase 2, you mean the grant that we're talking about applying for, and we hope that we get the grant, but we have no guarantee that we're going to get the grant, in which case we will bite off a little bit of this at a time as we can find funding. Is that a correct assumption?
That is correct. Phase 1 of this has been funded through community support funding from Bastrop Power and Light. And as we have additional funding, we will, to your point, in bite-sized pieces, incrementally add items as we move forward unless we get the grant. And then such time we would match the $250,000 from the state from $250,000 that would be another contribution from BP&L.
Okay.
I'd like to move to approve as requested.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Jones, a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll. Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schiff?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. It is 8:14, and we will be going into executive session to discuss 12A, which is City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code to discuss and deliberate litigation matters with the special counsel to the City of Bastrop regarding City of Bastrop versus Van Diver Settlement Agreement, 21st Judicial District, cause number 124-21. We are now in executive session. Okay, it's 9:15. We adjourned our executive session. We're now cut back in regular session. There is no action that will be taken on item 13, so I'm at item 14.
I move for adjournment.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Ennis, and by acclamation, we are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.